My name is Ryan. What happened to me took place in the fall of 2022. I haven't talked about it publicly before. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway. But every night when I close my eyes, I still hear that voice. The voice that called my name from deep inside the Appalachian forest. And I know one thing. It wasn't human. I was 28 years old and working as a wildlife photographer. For nearly 6 years I had traveled across the United States photographing remote wilderness areas. The Appalachian Mountains were one of my favorite locations. Dense forests, ancient trails, endless ridges, places where a person could disappear and never be found. That was exactly why I loved them. Or at least I did before everything happened. In October, I received an assignment from an outdoor magazine. The goal was simple. Spend 5 days documenting autumn wildlife in a remote section of the mountains near eastern Tennessee. The area was far from towns, far from highways, far from civilization. Exactly the kind of location editors loved. I packed my gear and drove out early Friday morning. The weather forecast looked perfect. Cool temperatures, clear skies, no storms expected. Nothing seemed unusual. By noon I reached a small mountain town. Population less than 600 people. One gas station. One diner. One church. That was it. The place looked frozen in time. While buying supplies, I met an old man sitting outside the store. He noticed my camera equipment. Going into the woods? He asked. I nodded. Just for photography. The old man's smile disappeared. You staying near Black Hollow Ridge? I checked my map. That was exactly where I planned to camp. Yeah. The man stared at me for several seconds. Then he quietly said, "If you hear somebody calling your name after dark." He paused. "Don't answer." I laughed. He didn't. That should have been my first warning. But it wasn't. The hike began smoothly. Beautiful weather. Golden leaves. Wildlife everywhere. I spent the afternoon taking photographs. Deer. Foxes. Owls. Everything seemed perfect. By sunset, I reached a clearing beside a creek and set up camp. The forest became silent after dark. Much quieter than normal. At first I thought nothing of it. Then I realized I couldn't hear insects. No crickets. No frogs. Nothing. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Around midnight I woke up. Someone had called my name. Softly. Very softly. Ryan. I sat upright inside my tent. Listening. Nothing. Just darkness. I told myself it was a dream. Eventually I fell back asleep. An hour later it happened again. Closer this time. Ryan. The voice sounded almost familiar. Like someone I knew. A friend. Maybe a family member. The strange thing was that it came from outside the tent. I grabbed my flashlight. Opened the zipper. Looked around. Nothing. No footprints. No people. Only darkness. Endless darkness between the trees. The next morning I convinced myself it had been imagination. Lack of sleep. Nothing more. I packed up and continued deeper into the forest. The second day was different. The feeling started around noon. The feeling of being watched. Photographers spend years in remote wilderness. You learn to trust your instincts. And my instincts were screaming. Something wasn't right. Several times I looked behind me. Each time I felt certain someone was standing among the trees. Watching. Waiting. But whenever I looked, nothing. Late that afternoon I discovered footprints. Human footprints. Fresh ones. Leading through the mud. At first I felt relieved. Maybe another hiker was nearby. Then I noticed something strange. The footprints suddenly stopped. Not turned. Not changed direction. Stopped. As if the person had vanished. That night the voice returned. And this time it wasn't alone. Ryan. Another voice answered. Ryan. Then another. And another. Until dozens of voices whispered my name from every direction. Men. Women. Children. All speaking at once. I stayed inside my tent trembling. The whispers continued for hours. Circling the camp. Getting closer. And closer. And closer. Then something touched the side of the tent. Slowly dragging across the fabric. From top to bottom. I froze. The sound happened again. Long fingernails scraping the nylon. And then a voice whispered directly beside my head. Come outside. I didn't sleep at all. When sunrise finally arrived, I packed everything and left immediately. But the forest had changed. Or maybe I had. The trail I'd been following was gone. Completely gone. I checked my GPS. No signal. Compass. Spinning. Phone. Dead. Even though it had been fully charged. I was lost. And that was when I saw the first figure. Standing between two trees. Far away. Watching me. It looked human. Tall. Thin. Motionless. I blinked. It disappeared. Over the next several hours I saw more. Always distant. Always watching. Never approaching. Until sunset. Because at sunset, they started following me. By evening, I had been hiking for nearly 10 miles. I was certain I was moving south. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But something wasn't right. Every few hours, I would come across the same landmarks. A broken trail sign. A fallen oak tree split by lightning. An old hunting stand nailed high in a pine tree. The first time, I ignored it. The second time, I felt uneasy. The third time, I stopped walking completely. Because there was no way I should have been seeing that hunting stand again. I was walking in circles. And somehow, I hadn't even realized it. The realization sent a cold wave through my entire body. The forest wasn't supposed to do that. Not to someone with my experience. I had spent years navigating wilderness areas. I knew how to read terrain. I knew how to follow maps. I knew how to stay oriented. But Black Hollow Ridge seemed to operate under different rules. Rules that didn't make sense. Rules that didn't belong in the natural world. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, darkness began swallowing the forest. I needed shelter. I needed rest. Most of all, I needed daylight. So I found a small clearing near a creek and set up camp. The silence returned almost immediately. No birds, no insects, no distant animal sounds. Nothing. The entire forest felt dead, as if every living thing had abandoned the mountain. Everything except me. Around 11 that night, I heard laughter. A little girl's laughter. Soft, playful, coming from somewhere deep among the trees. I froze. The sound lasted only a few seconds. Then it stopped. I listened carefully. Nothing. Just silence. Then the laughter returned. Closer this time. Much closer. My stomach tightened. There shouldn't have been a child anywhere near that forest. The nearest town was miles away. No families camped in that area. No cabins. No roads. Nothing. Yet the laughter continued, moving between the trees, circling my camp, sometimes far away, sometimes so close it sounded like it was standing just beyond the firelight. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it toward the darkness. At first, I saw nothing. Then I noticed two pale lights staring back. Eyes. Two bright white eyes. At least 7 feet above the ground. Far too high for any normal person. Far too high for a child. The eyes remained perfectly still, watching me, studying me. The fire crackled beside me. My hands trembled. For nearly 10 seconds, neither of us moved. Then the eyes vanished. Not gradually. Not by turning away. They simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. I retreated into my tent, locked the zipper, placed my shotgun beside me, and waited for morning. Sleep never came. Fear kept me awake. Every sound felt amplified. Every movement outside made my heart race. Then, around 2 in the morning, I heard a voice. A voice I recognized instantly. My mother's voice. Ryan. My entire body went rigid. My mother lived hundreds of miles away. There was absolutely no way she could be there. Yet the voice sounded perfect. Every detail. Every tone. Every inflection. Exactly like her. Ryan, honey. Come outside. The words came from just beyond the tent. A few feet away. No more. I closed my eyes. I knew it wasn't real. I knew it couldn't be. But part of my brain wanted to believe it. Part of me wanted to unzip the tent and look. The voice called again. Closer. Softer. Almost pleading. Then footsteps began circling the tent. Crunch. 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 Slow footsteps through dry leaves. One complete circle. Then another. Then another. The thing outside wasn't walking randomly. It was pacing. Studying me. Waiting. Like a predator. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The footsteps never stopped. Occasionally they paused near my head. Then continued moving. I gripped the shotgun so tightly my fingers hurt. I didn't dare make a sound. Finally, everything went silent. Completely silent. The kind of silence that hurts your ears. I thought it had left. Then something touched the tent. A long shape slowly dragged across the fabric. From one side to the other. The material stretched inward. Something was pressing against it. Something large. Something strong. I aimed my flashlight upward, and that's when I saw the shadow. A hand. At least it looked like a hand, but the fingers were impossibly long. Thin. Twisted. Each one nearly 3 feet in length. The shadow slowly moved across the roof of the tent. Feeling. Searching. Trying to locate me inside. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The hand lingered for several seconds, then withdrew into the darkness. Morning finally arrived. I packed camp immediately.
No breakfast, no photographs, no villas.
I just wanted out. The deeper truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Something was following me. Something intelligent. Something that understood human voices. And whatever it wasn't human. Around noon, I found an old cabin. The structure looked abandoned for decades. The roof sagged. Several windows were broken. Moss covered most of the walls. At first I intended to keep walking. Then I noticed something near the front door. A backpack. Modern. Relatively new. Not weathered. Not abandoned long ago. Someone else had been there recently. Or still was. I approached cautiously. The cabin door stood partially open. The smell inside was awful. Rotting wood. Mold. Something else. Something I couldn't identify. I stepped inside. Dust covered everything. The furniture had collapsed years ago. But one thing immediately caught my attention. The walls. Names covered every wall. Hundreds of names scratched into the wood. Some old. Some recent. And beneath almost every name was the same sentence. He knows your voice. My pulse quickened. I moved closer. Then my blood turned to ice. At the bottom of the wall was a name scratched into fresh wood. A name that hadn't been there long. A name carved only days earlier. Ryan. My name. I stared at it in disbelief. I had never been inside that cabin. Nobody should have known I was coming. Nobody. Yet somehow my name was already there. Waiting for me. Like the forest had expected my arrival. Like something had prepared for me. Then I heard a sound overhead. Thump. I looked up. Thump. Another step. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from directly above. The problem was, there was no second floor. The cabin's upper level had collapsed years ago. Nothing existed above me except darkness. Yet the footsteps continued. Thump. 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 Slowly moving across empty air. And then a voice emerged from the darkness. My voice. Perfectly identical to my own. Ryan. A pause. Then. You're late. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run. So I did. I sprinted from the cabin without looking back. Branches struck my face. Roots nearly tripped me. My lungs burned. But I kept running. Because something was chasing me. I could hear it behind me. Fast. Far too fast. Whatever it was moved through the forest effortlessly. Crashing through trees. Closing the distance. Getting closer. 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 But I never looked back. Not once. Because deep down I knew something horrifying. If I looked at it, it might never let me leave. And then, Just before sunset, I finally saw it. Standing among the trees. Watching. Waiting. Nearly 10 feet tall. Thin as a skeleton. Its body looked vaguely human. But its face wasn't. There were no eyes.
No sé.
No normal features. Only a massive grin stretching from one side of its head to the other. A smile far too large to belong to any living thing. The creature tilted its head. And then it spoke. Using my own voice. Exactly my voice. Go home, Ryan. A pause. Then the smile widened. We'll find you. I escaped Black Hollow Ridge that night. At least physically. But part of me never left. Because even now, years later, I still receive phone calls from unknown numbers. Whenever I answer, I hear wind. Leaves moving through trees. Distant laughter. A little girl's laughter. Then silence. And finally, my own voice whispering through the speaker. Ryan. I'm still here. For almost 6 months after escaping Black Hollow Ridge, I convinced myself it was over. I returned home to Ohio. Went back to work. Stopped hiking. Stopped camping. Stopped thinking about the mountains. Or at least I tried. But some things are impossible to forget. Especially when they refuse to forget you. The phone calls continued. Not every day. Not even every week. Sometimes months would pass without anything happening. Then suddenly my phone would ring at 3 in the morning. Unknown number. No caller ID.
No voicemail.
When I answered, all I heard was wind moving through trees. Nothing else. Just wind. And somewhere far in the background, that same little girl's laughter. The laughter I had heard deep inside Black Hollow Ridge. Every single call ended the same way. A whisper. My own voice. Ryan. Then the line would disconnect. I never told anyone. Who would believe me? Even I wasn't sure I believed it. Eventually, I convinced myself it had been trauma. Stress. Sleep deprivation. A psychological breakdown caused by isolation. That explanation worked. For a while. Until April of 2023. The day I received an email. The sender's name was unfamiliar. The subject line contained only 3 words. I found your file. At first I assumed it was spam. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside was a single message. Call me. Below it was a phone number. Nothing else.
No explanation. No signature.
Against my better judgment, I called. The phone rang twice. A man answered. Ryan. The moment I heard his voice, I knew he had been expecting my call. Who is this? I asked. My name is Daniel Harper. There was a long pause. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. I know what happened to you in Black Hollow Ridge. My heart nearly stopped. I hadn't told anyone about Black Hollow Ridge. Nobody. Not family. Not friends. Not co-workers. Nobody. Yet somehow this stranger knew. Daniel explained that he worked as a volunteer archivist for a regional historical society. A few months earlier, he had been organizing old records from several national forest offices. Among those records were missing persons reports dating back nearly 70 years. Dozens of cases, all connected to the same area, Black Hollow Ridge. At first he thought it was coincidence. People disappeared in wilderness areas all the time. Then he noticed something strange. Every report contained similar details. Voices, phone calls, people hearing loved ones calling their names from the woods. The same pattern repeated over and over. For decades. Then he found my report. The emergency report filed when search teams located my abandoned campsite after I escaped. My blood ran cold. Because I had never filed a report. I had never contacted authorities. I had simply left. Yet somehow there was a report. A detailed report. One that included information nobody should have known. Who filed it? I asked. Daniel hesitated. That's the problem. The signature doesn't exist. What do you mean? The ranger who signed the report disappeared in 1987. Silence. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. Daniel continued. The signature belongs to Ranger Samuel Graves. He vanished while investigating Black Hollow Ridge. He was never found. My skin prickled. Then how did he sign a report about me? I don't know. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then Daniel asked a question. Have you ever heard of the missing ranger files? I hadn't, and I wish I never had. According to Daniel, there had been 14 official disappearances connected to Black Hollow Ridge between 1954 and 2019. Those were only the documented cases. The real number was probably much higher. Every missing ranger left behind notes, journals, voice recordings, investigation reports, all describing the same thing. A presence in the forest. Something that copied voices. Something that learned names. Something that followed people home. Most of the files had been classified as unreliable due to psychological stress. But one recording stood out. A cassette tape recovered from Ranger Samuel Graves' truck in 1987. The final recording before he vanished. Daniel had digitized the tape, and he wanted me to hear it. I almost refused. Part of me knew I shouldn't listen, but curiosity won. A few seconds later my phone emitted static. Then a man's voice appeared. Calm. Professional. A ranger making an official report. This is Ranger Samuel Graves. June 14th, 1987. I'm currently investigating reports of voices near Black Hollow Ridge. Static crackled. Then Graves continued. Something is following me. Long silence. Heavy breathing. Then, it knows my name. The next sound made my blood freeze. A voice in the background. Soft. Distant. Calling from somewhere among the trees. Samuel. Even through decades-old audio equipment, the voice sounded wrong. Artificial. Almost human. But not quite. The ranger spoke again. It keeps changing voices. It sounds like my wife now. Another pause. Then, it knows things. Static filled the recording. For nearly 20 seconds there was only noise. Then footsteps. Running. Branches breaking. Heavy breathing. And suddenly the ranger screamed. The scream cut off abruptly. The tape ended. I sat frozen in my chair, unable to move, unable to think, because the final voice on the recording wasn't Samuel Graves. It was mine. My voice. 35 years before I was even born. The line disconnected. Daniel called back immediately. His voice sounded terrified. You heard it, didn't you? I swallowed hard. Yeah. Silence. Then Daniel whispered, It's learning. 3 days later, Daniel disappeared. No warning. No gubye. Gone. His apartment was empty. His car remained parked outside. His phone stopped working. Police never found him. But they found one thing. A notebook. Hidden beneath his desk. Inside were dozens of pages filled with research about Black Hollow Ridge. Maps. Photos. Witness statements. And one sentence written repeatedly across every page. The same sentence. Over and over. As if he had become obsessed. Or terrified. Or both. IT doesn't copy voices. It copies people. That was the moment I realized something. Something far worse than anything I'd imagined. The creature wasn't mimicking voices. It wasn't imitating sounds. It was learning, studying, replacing, and somewhere deep in Black Hollow Ridge, something had been collecting people for decades, maybe longer, learning every word, every memory, every voice, until eventually, it could become them. 2 weeks after Daniel vanished, I received another phone call. Unknown number. 3:17 a.m. I already knew who it was. I answered anyway. The line remained silent for several seconds. Then a familiar voice spoke. Daniel Harper's voice. Perfectly clear. Perfectly calm. Ryan. I found it. A pause. Then, it's not alone. The call ended, and outside my bedroom window, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving through the darkness, toward my house. I didn't sleep after Daniel's phone call. How could I? The voice had sounded exactly like him. Not close. Not similar. Exactly. Every pause. Every breath. Every inflection. If I hadn't known he was missing, I would have believed it was really him. But what terrified me most wasn't the call. It was the footsteps outside my house afterward. Slow. Measured. Circling my property. For nearly an hour. Whenever I looked through the windows, I saw nothing. No person. No animal. No movement. Just darkness. Yet the footsteps continued. Crunch. 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 Moving through the grass. Around and around. Like something inspecting my home. Learning it. Memorizing it. The same way it had memorized my voice. The next morning, I made a decision. One I would later regret. I was going back. Back to Black Hollow Ridge. Back to the place where everything started. Because if Daniel was still alive, I needed to know. And if he wasn't, I needed answers. 3 days later, I parked my truck outside the same small mountain town. Nothing had changed. The gas station still stood beside the road. The diner still looked abandoned. The church bell still hung crooked above the entrance. Even the old man who had warned me the first time was sitting outside the store. When he saw me, his expression changed immediately, as if he recognized a ghost. "You came back." I nodded. The old man's face tightened. That was a mistake. I asked him if he knew anything about Black Hollow Ridge. For several seconds he remained silent. Then he looked around to make sure nobody was listening, and quietly said, "My grandfather used to talk about something living in those mountains." "What was it?" He shook his head. He never gave it a name. Why? Because names make things real. I felt a chill run through me. The old man stared toward the distant tree line. My grandfather said there used to be entire settlements in those mountains. Families. Hunters. Trappers. Then people started disappearing. I swallowed hard. How many? His answer made my blood run cold. Enough that nobody lives there anymore. Before I left, he grabbed my arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. Then he whispered something that would haunt me later. "If you hear your own voice." He paused. "Run." I entered Black Hollow Ridge shortly after noon. The forest looked exactly the same. Ancient trees, dense undergrowth, endless shadows. But now there was something else. A feeling. The sensation of being watched. The moment I crossed into the woods, it was back. Hours passed. I followed Daniel's maps. Most led nowhere. Collapsed trails. Old campsites. Abandoned ranger stations. Dead ends. Yet one location appeared repeatedly. A place marked on nearly every map. A location simply labeled Fire Tower. By late afternoon, I found it. The structure rose above the treetops. Tall. Rust-covered. Decades old. The staircase twisted upward into the sky. At least 80 feet high. The observation cabin at the top looked abandoned. Several windows were broken. The entire tower swayed slightly in the wind. Something about it felt wrong. Like it didn't belong there. Like the forest wanted to hide it. Still, I climbed. Each step groaned beneath my weight. The higher I went, the stronger the feeling became. The feeling that someone was watching me. Waiting for me. At the top, I forced open the rusted door. The cabin was covered in dust. Old equipment littered the floor. Maps. Broken radios. Rotting furniture. Most of it looked untouched for decades. Then I found the recordings. Boxes. Dozens of them. Stacked against the far wall. Cassette tapes. Hundreds of cassette tapes. Each labeled with dates, names, and ranger identification numbers. I picked up the nearest one. Ranger Collins. Missing. Another. Ranger Briggs. Missing. Another.
Samuel Graves.
Missing. The same Samuel Graves whose voice I had heard. The ranger who disappeared decades earlier. My hand shook. Every tape belonged to someone who had vanished. Every single one. Then I noticed something even stranger. One tape set apart from the others. Newer than the rest. Far newer. A white label covered its side. Written in black marker were 2 words. Ryan Carter. My name. I froze. The tape shouldn't exist. I had never been there before. I had never recorded anything. Yet someone had already prepared a tape with my name on it, waiting for me. My heart pounded as I inserted it into an old cassette player. For several seconds there was only static. Then a voice began speaking. My voice. This is Ryan Carter. The recording continued. I don't have much time. Every hair on my body stood up, because I had never said those words. Never. The voice sounded exhausted, terrified, as if it had been running for hours. If you're hearing this, the recording said, it already knows where you are. I stepped backward, unable to breathe, unable to understand. The voice continued, do not trust Daniel. My stomach dropped. It's using him. Static crackled across the tape. Then another voice appeared. A second voice. Daniel's voice. Ryan. A pause. Then laughter. Low. Deep. Inhuman. The sound didn't belong to Daniel. It didn't belong to any human being. Suddenly the tape player shut off by itself. The cabin went silent. Completely silent. Then I heard footsteps. Coming from below. Someone was climbing the tower. Slowly. One step at a time. Clang. 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 Metal stairs echoed beneath the structure. The sound moved steadily upward. Closer. 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 I rushed to the window, looked down, and saw a figure climbing toward me. At first I thought it was Daniel. The build looked right. The clothing looked right. Even the face looked right. Then the figure looked up and smiled. The smile stretched impossibly wide, far wider than any human mouth could. My blood turned to ice, because the thing climbing the tower wasn't Daniel. It only wanted me to think it was. The creature continued ascending, one step at a time, never breaking eye contact, never stopping, still smiling. Then it spoke. Its voice carried upward through the trees. Soft, calm, and unmistakably familiar. Ryan. My own voice. The creature was using my voice again. But this time there was something different. Something worse. It wasn't copying me anymore. It was becoming me. And as it climbed closer, I realized the horrifying truth. The face wasn't changing into Daniel's. The face was changing into mine. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. I stood frozen inside the fire tower, staring through the dirty window as the thing climbed toward me. Step by step. Closer. 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 Its face continued changing, shifting, stretching, reforming, like wet clay being molded by invisible hands. The features became more familiar with every movement. My nose, my eyes, my jawline, my hair. By the time it reached the final flight of stairs, it looked almost identical to me. Almost. There were still differences. The smile, the eyes, the way it moved. No human being moved like that. Its joints bent slightly wrong. Its head tilted too far. Its smile never faded. Not even once. The metal staircase groaned beneath its weight. Clang, clang, clang. Each step echoed through the tower. Then the footsteps stopped, directly outside the door. Silence, complete silence, for nearly 30 seconds. Then 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was deliberate, patient, as though it knew I was trapped. Then it spoke, using my voice, perfectly. Ryan. A pause. You don't need to be afraid. I backed away from the door. Every instinct screamed that opening it would be the last mistake of my life. The voice came again. Softer this time. Almost friendly. I've been looking for you. The doorknob began turning. Slowly. The rusted metal squealed. The door creaked inward. Just a few inches. Then stopped. A pale eye appeared in the gap, watching me, unblinking. The eye looked human, but there was something wrong with it. There was no emotion.
No curiosity. No anger.
Nothing. Just observation. Like a scientist studying an insect. Then I heard another sound. Far below the tower. A scream. Human. Terrified. Echoing through the forest. The creature immediately turned its head toward the noise. For the first time, its smile disappeared. A second scream followed. Closer. More desperate. The thing outside the door became still. Listening. Then suddenly it moved. Fast. Far faster than anything that size should have been capable of moving. The footsteps exploded down the staircase. Metal shook violently beneath it. Within seconds it was gone. I didn't wait. I grabbed my backpack and rushed out of the tower. The forest below seemed darker now. The sun was beginning to set. Long shadows stretched between the trees. The screams had stopped. Everything was silent again. Then I saw something near the base of the tower. A steel hatch, hidden beneath leaves and moss. I almost missed it. The hatch wasn't marked on Daniel's maps, nor was it marked on any ranger records. Yet it looked old. Very old. The metal was rusted almost completely brown. Curiosity overcame fear. I pulled the hatch open. Cold air rushed upward. It carrying a smell unlike anything I'd ever encountered. Rotting earth, mold, and something else. Something sweet, like decaying flowers. A narrow staircase descended into darkness, deep underground, far beneath the forest floor. I turned on my flashlight and started down. Every step made me question my decision. The tunnel felt wrong. The deeper I went, the heavier the air became. The walls were reinforced with old timber supports. Many had collapsed. Some looked more than 100 years old. Eventually the stairs ended. A massive underground chamber opened before me. I stopped breathing, because the chamber wasn't natural. Someone had built it. The room stretched farther than my flashlight could reach. Rows of wooden shelves lined the walls. Thousands of photographs covered those shelves. Thousands. I picked one up. A family standing outside a cabin. Date on the back. Another photo. A group of hikers. Another. A ranger.
Samuel Graves.
The missing ranger. Every photograph showed people connected to Black Hollow Ridge. People who had disappeared. People who were never found. My flashlight beam moved across the room. Then I noticed something worse. The mannequins. At least 50 of them stood throughout the chamber. Life-sized figures arranged in small groups. Families. Friends. Couples. All standing perfectly still. At first I thought they were wax figures. Then I moved closer and realized they weren't mannequins at all. They were people, or had once been. The skin looked real. The hair looked real. The clothing was genuine. Yet none of them moved. None of them blinked. They simply stood there, frozen, as though time itself had stopped. One figure caught my attention. A man in a ranger uniform. His name tag read, Samuel Gravis. The missing ranger. His eyes remained open. His face remained expressionless. But somehow he was still standing. I stumbled backward. My pulse hammered in my ears. Then another figure turned its head. Slowly. Very slowly, until it looked directly at me. I nearly screamed, because I recognized the face. Daniel Harper, the missing archivist. His lips trembled. Run. Before I could respond, every light in the chamber went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Absolute darkness. Then hundreds of voices began whispering at once. Men, women, children, old people, young people. Thousands of voices led together, and every single one spoke the same words. He's coming. The whispers grew louder, closer, surrounding me from every direction. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps, approaching through the darkness. Thud, thud, thud. The entire chamber seemed to vibrate. Something enormous was moving toward me. Something much larger than the creature from the tower. A low growl echoed through the tunnels. Not animal, not human. Something ancient. Something hungry. My flashlight flickered back to life. Only for a second. But that second was enough. Because standing at the far end of the chamber was a figure at least 15 feet tall. Thin. Impossible. Its body was made of shifting faces. Hundreds of faces. All moving beneath its skin. All trying to scream. And among those faces, I saw my own, smiling back at me. The thing standing at the far end of the chamber wasn't an animal. It wasn't a monster. And it definitely wasn't human. For one horrifying second, my flashlight illuminated the entire figure. Then the beam died again. But that second was enough. Enough to scar me forever. Enough to make me understand why so many people had vanished in Black Hollow Ridge. The creature was enormous. At least 15 feet tall. Its body appeared to be made from darkness itself. Not solid flesh. Not skin. Something else. Something moving. Something alive. Faces pushed beneath its surface like trapped people struggling beneath frozen water. Hundreds of faces. Maybe thousands. Men. Women. Children. All silently screaming. All trapped inside. The flashlight went dark. The chamber disappeared. But I could still hear it moving. Slowly. Patiently. Approaching. Thud, thud, thud. Each footstep shook the ground beneath me. The whispers surrounding me grew louder. The frozen people scattered throughout the chamber suddenly began speaking. Not moving, not walking, just speaking, all at once. Run. Don't let it see you. It's hungry. It remembers. It learns. Then Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. Louder than the others. More desperate. Ryan. Run now. That was all I needed. I turned and sprinted. The tunnel behind me twisted through the mountain like a maze. My flashlight flickered violently. The beam danced across ancient walls. Strange symbols. Old carvings. Messages scratched into wood. Most were warnings. Don't answer it. Don't follow the voices. Don't look into its eyes. Behind me, the footsteps continued. Slow, steady, almost casual, as if the creature already knew I couldn't escape. The tunnel suddenly opened into another chamber. This one much older, much larger. The ceiling vanished into darkness. Massive stone pillars rose from the floor. Ancient symbols covered every surface. Symbols that looked centuries old. Maybe older. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar. And on that altar sat a journal. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stupidity. Maybe fate. Whatever the reason, I grabbed the journal. The leather cover practically fell apart in my hands. Inside, the first page was dated October 3rd, 1891. My stomach tightened. The journal belonged to a man named Elijah Mercer, one of the earliest settlers in the mountains. The entries became increasingly disturbing. October 5th, 1891. We hear voices in the woods at night. The voices sound like family members. Thomas followed one yesterday. He has not returned. October 12th. 3 more are gone. The thing watches from the trees. It wears their faces. October 18th. The old Cherokee stories were true. The Hollow King is awake. I froze. The Hollow King. The name Daniel had never mentioned. The name hidden inside local legends. The next pages revealed something terrifying. According to the journal, settlers had discovered an underground cavern beneath Black Hollow Ridge nearly 200 years earlier. Something lived there. Something ancient. Something that fed on identity. Not flesh. Not blood. Identity. Memories. Voices. Faces. Lives. The creature didn't kill people immediately. It studied them first. Learned everything about them. Then replaced them. The final entry was almost unreadable. The handwriting shook violently across the page. It knows my wife. It knows my son. It knows me. If anyone finds this, do not let it leave the mountain. The journal ended there. A deep growl echoed through the chamber. I looked up, and immediately wished I hadn't. The Hollow King stood at the entrance, watching me. Its body shifted continuously. Faces appeared and vanished across its skin. Hundreds of eyes opened and closed. Hundreds of mouths whispered. Thousands of voices speaking at once. Then one voice emerged from the noise. My voice. Ryan. The creature took another step forward. You're already part of us. The chamber shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Stone cracked. The Hollow King extended a long arm. An arm covered in faces. Every face staring directly at me. Then I saw someone unexpected. My father. My father had died when I was 16. Yet there he was. One of the faces moving beneath the creature's skin. Looking directly at me. For one brief second, his eyes met mine. And I swear he mouthed a single word. Run. I turned and ran. Faster than I ever had in my life. The tunnel twisted upward. The mountain trembled behind me. The Hollow King's footsteps echoed through the darkness. No longer slow. No longer patient. Now it was chasing me. And it was gaining ground. Suddenly my flashlight illuminated something ahead. A steel door. Ancient. Rust-covered. Partially open. I rushed through. The tunnel beyond sloped upward toward moonlight. Fresh air. Freedom. Then a voice stopped me cold. Ryan. Not the creature's voice. Not Daniel's. Not my own. My mother's voice. I knew it wasn't real. I knew it was a trap. Yet every instinct screamed at me to turn around. The voice came again. Closer. More emotional. Please help me. I nearly looked. Nearly. Then I remembered the old man's warning. If you hear your own voice, run. If you hear someone you love, run faster. So I did. Moments later, I burst from the tunnel into the cold night air. I collapsed among the trees, gasping for breath, covered in sweat. Behind me, the tunnel entrance trembled. Then silence returned. The mountain became still. For a moment, I thought I had escaped. Then I looked down. There was something written on my arm. Words scratched into my skin. Fresh. Bleeding. As if invisible fingers had carved them there. 3 words. See you soon. And underneath those words, a symbol. The same symbol carved throughout the underground chambers. The mark of the Hollow King. I didn't know it then. But the mark meant only one thing. The Hollow King hadn't lost me. It had claimed me. I didn't go back to Ohio immediately. For 2 days, I stayed in a motel nearly 40 miles from Black Hollow Ridge. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Hollow King. The shifting faces. The impossible smile. The endless whispers. And the mark. The symbol carved into my arm. The symbol that shouldn't have existed. The symbol that refused to heal. The wound remained fresh. Day after day. No matter what I did. Bandages didn't help. Medication didn't help. The skin around it remained red and irritated. Almost alive. As if something beneath my flesh was moving. Watching. Waiting. On the 3rd night, I woke up at exactly 3:13 a.m. My room was dark. Silent. Then I noticed something strange. The television was on. I knew I hadn't turned it on. Static filled the screen. Nothing else. Then a face appeared. For less than a second. Gone before I could fully process it. But I recognized it. Daniel Harper. The missing archivist. The screen returned to static. Then words slowly appeared. Black letters against white noise. You are not alone. The message vanished. Another appeared. Find the marked ones. Then the television exploded. Glass shattered across the room. Sparks filled the air. The screen went black. And suddenly the motel room became silent again. On the floor beside the television lay a folded piece of paper. One that definitely hadn't been there before. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was an address. Nothing more.
No explanation.
No name. Just an address in rural Kentucky. 3 days later, I drove there. The road led deep into the mountains. Far from towns. Far from highways. Far from civilization. The location felt disturbingly familiar. Too much like Black Hollow Ridge. Eventually, I reached a fenced property hidden among dense forest. The gate stood open. A single sign hung above it. The foundation. Nothing else. I parked and walked inside. Immediately, I noticed security cameras. Floodlights. Armed guards. The entire place looked more like a military compound than a private property. Before I reached the main building, 2 men approached. Both carried rifles. Neither looked surprised to see me. One of them glanced at my arm. At the mark. Then nodded. He's one of them. The other guard opened the gate. Welcome to the foundation. Inside the compound, I met a woman named Sarah Keller, former FBI. At least that's what she claimed. She led me into a conference room. Maps covered the walls. Photographs. Case files. Missing persons reports. Newspaper clippings. Thousands of documents. One wall immediately caught my attention. Dozens of photographs displayed the exact same symbol carved into my arm. The Hollow King's mark. Sarah noticed me staring. You're survivor number 37. My stomach tightened. 37 what? Known survivors. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Sarah opened a folder. Inside were photographs of people from across America. Washington, Montana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Every person had escaped a different wilderness area. Every person carried the same mark. And every person reported the same things. Voices, phone calls, mimicked loved ones, missing people, things wearing human faces. The Hollow King wasn't unique to Black Hollow Ridge. Or worse, maybe Black Hollow Ridge had never been its prison. Maybe it had always been its feeding ground. Sarah placed another photograph on the table. I nearly fell out of my chair. The image showed Daniel Harper, alive, standing outside a gas station. The photograph had been taken only 4 days earlier. That's impossible. Sarah shook her head. We've been tracking him. Then he's alive. No. The answer came so quickly it stunned me. Sarah slid another file toward me. Inside was a death certificate. Daniel Harper, officially deceased. 3 weeks earlier. I stared at the document, unable to understand. If he's dead. Sarah finished the sentence for me. Then who's walking around wearing his face? Silence filled the room. Nobody needed to answer. We already knew. That night Sarah showed me something called the Survivor Archive, a database containing every known encounter with the Hollow King. Some reports dated back over 2 centuries. One entry stood out. West Virginia. Entire settlement disappeared overnight. Only one survivor remained. His journal contained a single warning. It grows stronger every time it learns a new face. Another report. Kentucky. Mining town abandoned. 42 people missing. Witnesses claimed dead relatives returned home weeks later. Perfect until they smiled. The same smile. The Hollow King smile. By midnight, I understood the horrifying truth. The creature wasn't trapped underground. It wasn't limited to one mountain. It was spreading, slowly, patiently, across the country. Then Sarah showed me the newest photograph, taken less than 12 hours earlier. The image came from a traffic camera in Nashville. A crowded street. Hundreds of people. Nothing unusual. Until I saw the figure standing among them. Tall. Thin. Watching the camera. Smiling. The Hollow King. And for the first time in history, it wasn't hiding in the woods. It was standing in a city, among thousands of people, learning, watching, growing. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Everyone in the room stared at it. Slowly, I answered. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then a familiar voice whispered into the receiver. Not Daniel. Not my own voice. Sarah's voice. The woman sitting directly across from me. And the voice said, "Ryan, look behind you." I turned. The conference room door was open, and something was standing in the hallway, wearing Sarah Keller's face. The thing standing in the hallway looked exactly like Sarah Keller. Not similar. Not close. Exactly. Same height. Same hair. Same clothing. Same face. For a split second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing, because the real Sarah was sitting directly across from me. Yet another Sarah stood outside the conference room door, smiling. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The room became deathly silent. The Sarah in the hallway slowly tilted her head. The movement wasn't human. Her neck bent too far, farther than it should have. The smile widened. Then every light inside the compound went out. Darkness swallowed the room. People shouted. Chairs crashed. Someone reached for a weapon. A second later, emergency lights activated. Red lights. Dim lights. The entire facility was suddenly bathed in blood-colored illumination. The hallway was empty. The second Sarah was gone. Security alarms erupted throughout the compound. A voice echoed through the building. Security breach. Security breach. Level 4 containment failure. Sarah jumped to her feet. For the first time since I met her, she looked genuinely afraid. It's inside. The word sent a chill through everyone present. One of the guards grabbed a radio. Which one? Sarah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the room, counting faces, making sure everyone was still there. Then she whispered, "I don't know anymore." Those words terrified me more than anything else, because if the Foundation couldn't identify the creature, nobody could. Within minutes, the compound entered lockdown. Steel doors sealed every corridor. Security teams searched every room, every office, every storage area, every basement level. 3 hours later, they found the first body. One of the guards, or what remained of him. He was discovered inside a maintenance tunnel. No visible injuries. No blood. No signs of violence. Just an expression of pure terror frozen on his face. And carved into the concrete wall beside him were 3 words. The handwriting belonged to the dead guard. The problem was, according to security footage, he had already been dead when those words appeared. That was when people started disappearing. One survivor vanished during breakfast. Another disappeared from a locked room. A third simply walked into a hallway and was never seen again. By the end of the week, 7 people were missing. 7 survivors. 7 marked ones. Gone. Sarah finally made a decision. We stop hiding. She gathered the remaining survivors. 29 of us. All carrying the Hollow King's mark. All connected somehow. Then she showed us something she had kept secret. A map. Dozens of disappearances had occurred over the years. National parks. Forests. Mountain towns. Abandoned settlements. At first, the locations seemed random. Then Sarah connected them using red lines. The pattern immediately became obvious. Every location pointed toward a city, a place none of us expected, the city of Chicago. Specifically, an abandoned subway system sealed beneath the city decades earlier. Sarah believed the Hollow King was building something there. A nest, a network, a place to store stolen identities. And according to the latest evidence, the missing survivors were being taken there. 3 nights later, we entered the tunnels. The entrance lay beneath an abandoned train station, a forgotten platform hidden behind a bricked-up wall. The moment we stepped inside, I felt it. The same feeling I experienced at Black Hollow Ridge. The sensation of being watched. The air smelled damp, rotten, old. Water dripped from the ceiling. Darkness stretched endlessly ahead. The deeper we traveled, the stranger things became. At first, we found personal belongings. Wallets, photographs, cell phones, shoes. Thousands of them. Entire rooms filled with possessions belonging to missing people. Then we found the faces. Photographs covered every tunnel wall. Millions of photographs. Old, new, color, black and white, Polaroids, digital prints. Every image showed a different person. Every image had one thing in common. The subject was smiling. Not naturally. The Hollow King smile. The deeper we went, the more impossible the tunnels became. According to the maps, the underground system should have ended miles earlier. Yet it continued. And continued. And continued. Like something underground was growing. Expanding. Building itself. Eventually we reached a massive chamber. An underground station unlike anything I had ever seen. Rows of empty trains sat motionless on abandoned tracks. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Most were rusted beyond recognition. Some looked ancient. Others appeared almost new. Sarah shined her flashlight across one train. The side of the carriage contained a single word: collection. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. We already understood. Then a noise echoed through the darkness. A train horn. Long. Loud. Impossible. Because none of the trains had power. The sound echoed again. Closer this time. Then headlights appeared deep within the tunnel. A train was moving, slowly emerging from the darkness. The train looked wrong. Its windows were filled with faces. Hundreds of faces. People staring outward. Not moving. Not blinking. Not breathing. Among them, I recognized Daniel Harper. And beside him,
Samuel Graves.
and dozens of other missing people, all watching us silently through the glass. Then the train stopped. The doors opened, and every passenger stood up at the exact same moment. Thousands of eyes turned toward us. Then all of them smiled. The Hollow King smile. And from somewhere inside the train, a deep voice echoed through the station. A voice older than any human being. A voice that seemed to come from the darkness itself. Welcome back, Ryan. I've been waiting. The station fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. The train stood motionless on the tracks. Its doors hung open, waiting, inviting, like the entrance to a tomb. The passengers remained perfectly still. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Faces pressed against the windows. Eyes fixed on us. Smiling. Always smiling. The voice echoed through the underground station once more. Deeper this time. Closer. As if it was standing directly behind me. Get on the train, Ryan. Every light inside the station flickered. The air temperature dropped instantly. My breath became visible. Sarah raised her weapon. Several guards did the same. Nobody fired. Because deep down, we all understood something. Bullets weren't going to solve this. The Hollow King wasn't flesh. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't something that could simply be killed. Then one of the passengers stepped out of the train. A little girl. No older than 8. She wore a faded yellow dress. The same dress shown in a missing person report Sarah had shown me days earlier. A child who vanished in 1983. The girl slowly raised her hand, pointing directly at me. Then she spoke. He's waiting. The voice wasn't hers. It belonged to an old man. The girl smiled, turned, and stepped back onto the train. The doors remained open. Sarah looked at me. I already knew what she was thinking. This was a trap, but it was also the first real lead we'd ever had. If the Hollow King wanted me aboard that train, there was probably a reason. And if I wanted answers, I had to go. Against every instinct screaming inside me, I stepped forward. Ryan. Sarah grabbed my arm. You don't know what's in there. I looked at the train, at the impossible passengers staring through the windows, at the darkness beyond the open doors. No, I whispered, but I think it knows what's inside me. Then I boarded. The moment my feet touched the floor of the carriage, the station vanished. Not physically, not completely. It simply became distant, like I had stepped into another world. The air inside felt heavier, older. Rows of passengers sat silently on both sides, every seat occupied, every face turned toward me. Not one blinked, not one moved. I walked deeper into the train, past dozens of carriages, then hundreds. The impossible thing was, the train shouldn't have been this large. From the outside, it looked like 10 cars at most. Inside, it stretched endlessly. Car after car, corridor after corridor, without end. The laws of reality no longer applied here. The passengers changed as I moved. Some wore clothing from the 1980s. Others looked like they came from the 1950s. Others even older. Victorian clothing, Civil War uniforms, frontier settlers. All of them missing. All of them stolen. All of them trapped. Eventually, I reached a carriage unlike the others. There were no seats.
No passengers.
Only mirrors. Thousands of mirrors. Covering every wall. Every surface. Floor to ceiling. And every reflection showed something different. One mirror showed me as a child. Another showed me old and gray-haired. Another showed me dead. Some reflections smiled at me, even when I wasn't smiling. Others moved independently, watching me, studying me. Then one reflection stepped out of its mirror. It looked exactly like me. The same face, the same body, the same voice. But its smile was wrong. The Hollow King smile. Do you know what we are? It asked. I didn't answer. The reflection smiled wider. We are memories. The mirrors around us began changing. Images flashed across their surfaces. Missing hikers. Lost families. Disappearing ranges. Entire towns. Entire generations. Then I understood. The Hollow King wasn't simply collecting people. It was collecting existence itself. Every memory. Every identity. Every life it touched. The creature fed on human experience. The more people it consumed, the larger it became. The stronger it became. And it had been feeding for centuries. The reflection stepped closer. Human beings think they're made of flesh. It laughed. You're not. The mirrors began showing thousands of faces. You're made of stories. More faces appeared. Millions of them. Memories. More. Names. More. Identity. Then every mirror shattered simultaneously. The explosion deafened me. Darkness swallowed the carriage. A massive shape emerged beyond the broken glass. At first, I thought it was a mountain. Then it moved. My flashlight illuminated only a tiny portion of it. Yet even that glimpse was enough. The Hollow King wasn't 15 feet tall. It wasn't even 50 feet tall. The thing beneath Black Hollow Ridge. The thing beneath Chicago. The thing beneath every place where people disappeared was only a fragment. A tiny piece. The true Hollow King was enormous. Its body stretched through the darkness beyond reality itself. A living continent of faces. A vast intelligence older than human civilization. Older than recorded history. Possibly older than humanity itself. Its eyes opened. Thousands of them. And every eye focused on me. Then the creature finally spoke. Not through copied voices. Not through stolen identities. Its real voice. The sound shook the train. Shook the tunnels. Shook reality itself. Do you remember your first fear, Ryan? Suddenly I did. Every childhood nightmare. Every forgotten terror. Every moment of fear I'd ever experienced. The Hollow King had access to all of it. Because somehow, somewhere, it had already been inside my mind. Then the impossible happened. The creature showed me something. A memory. Not mine. Its memory. A vision of ancient forests before humanity existed. Darkness beneath mountains. Something sleeping beneath the earth. Waiting. Growing. Dreaming. Waiting for intelligent life. Waiting for stories. Waiting for minds. Waiting for us. And then I saw something even worse. The Hollow King wasn't alone. Far beyond it, hidden deeper in the darkness, other shapes moved. Larger shapes. Older shapes. Watching. Waiting. And something far worse was beginning to wake up. The creature leaned closer. Millions of stolen faces shifted beneath its skin. Then one face emerged. My face. And it whispered, "Tell them we are coming." The train suddenly lurched forward. Violently. The passengers screamed for the first time. Thousands of voices filling the darkness. The mirrors exploded again. The carriage began collapsing. Reality itself seemed to tear apart. And I realized something horrifying. The train wasn't taking people somewhere. It was bringing something here. The train was no longer moving through tunnels. At least, not normal tunnels. Outside the windows, there was no concrete.
No subway walls.
No tracks. Only darkness. Endless darkness. A darkness so deep it seemed to swallow light itself. The screaming passengers remained frozen in their seats. Thousands of faces. Thousands of stolen lives. All staring out into the void. Waiting. As if they knew what was coming. As if they had seen it before. The train accelerated. Faster. And faster. And faster. The metal groaned. The windows shook. Yet when I looked outside, there was still nothing. No destination.
No horizon.
No end. Then a faint glow appeared ahead. A tiny point of light in the distance. At first it looked harmless. Small. Weak. Almost beautiful. But as the train approached, I realized something terrifying. The light wasn't getting closer. It was getting larger. Far larger. My mind struggled to comprehend its true size. Because it wasn't a light. It was a doorway. A colossal doorway. Floating in the darkness. Larger than a city. Perhaps larger than a mountain. Ancient symbols covered its surface. The same symbols I had seen beneath Black Hollow Ridge. The same mark burned into my arm. The door beneath America. Somehow I knew its name before anyone spoke it. And somehow I knew humanity had never been meant to find it. The Hollow King's voice echoed through the train. Before your species built cities. Before your species learned language. The door already existed. The darkness beyond the windows began changing. Images appeared. Ancient visions. Memories. Not human memories. Older memories. I saw glacier covering North America. I saw mammoths wandering frozen plains. I saw forests untouched by civilization. And beneath all of it, the door, always there, always hidden, always waiting. The Hollow King's voice continued. We did not come here. A pause. You built yourselves around us. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The entity wasn't invading Earth. It had always been here, long before humans existed. Waiting, watching, feeding. The train finally slowed. The giant doorway filled the entire horizon. Its surface appeared to move, like living stone. For one brief moment, I saw what lay beyond. I wish I hadn't. There are things the human brain isn't meant to understand. Things that don't fit inside our perception of reality. What I saw beyond that doorway wasn't a place. It wasn't another world. It wasn't another dimension. It was something else. Something alive. Something impossible. Millions of eyes opened within the darkness. Millions. Watching. Studying. Learning. The same way the Hollow King studied people. Then I understood. The Hollow King wasn't collecting identities for itself. It was collecting them for whatever existed beyond the door. Every stolen memory. Every stolen face. Every stolen life. A gift. An offering. Food. The train suddenly stopped. The passengers rose simultaneously. Every single one. Thousands of stolen people standing together. Then they began walking toward the front carriage. Toward the door. One by one they disappeared into the Daniel Harper. The little girl in the yellow dress. Hundreds more. Thousands more. All marching forward. None resisting. As though they no longer belonged to themselves. Then a hand touched my shoulder. I spun around. A man stood behind me. For a moment, I thought he was another passenger. Another victim. Then I recognized him. The man who warned me years ago. The man who told me never to answer the voices. Except he looked younger now. Much younger. Almost 40 years younger. His eyes met mine. And for the first time, I saw genuine fear in them. Ryan. His voice shook. We don't have much time. Who are you? The old man hesitated. Then he answered. My name isn't important. A pause. But I've been fighting this thing since 1968. My heart stopped. That would make him over 80 years old. Yet he looked 50. Maybe younger. Nothing made sense anymore. The man pointed toward the door. You need to understand something. What? He looked directly into my eyes. The Hollow King is only a gatekeeper. The words echoed through my mind. Only a gatekeeper. Then something enormous moved beyond the door. The darkness shifted. The millions of eyes blinked simultaneously. And the Hollow King lowered its head. Like a servant bowing before its master. For the first time in the entire story, the Hollow King appeared afraid. Then a voice emerged from beyond the door. A voice so deep it felt like reality itself was speaking. A voice older than Earth. Older than stars. Older than time. And it said only 3 words. Open the way. The door began opening wider. The train shook violently. The darkness screamed. The stolen passengers collapsed. And somewhere far away, back in the real world, every marked survivor felt the symbol on their skin begin to burn. Because something was finally waking up, and humanity's worst nightmare was about to begin. The door continued to open, slowly, relentlessly, as if nothing in existence could stop it. The crack widened from a few feet to hundreds of feet, then thousands. The darkness beyond it churned like a living ocean. Millions of eyes remained fixed upon us, watching, waiting, hungry. Around me, the passengers collapsed onto the train floor.
Samuel Graves.
Daniel Harper, the little girl in the yellow dress. Thousands of stolen people fell motionless, their faces twisted in pain, as if something inside them was being pulled away. The mark on my arm suddenly ignited. Not literally, but it felt like molten metal had been poured beneath my skin. I screamed and dropped to my knees. The symbol glowed beneath the flesh, pulsing, alive. The old man grabbed my shoulder. Ryan. His voice sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. It's starting. What is? The old man's face turned pale. The first opening. The train shook violently. Metal screamed. Windows shattered. The impossible void outside began bleeding into reality. Then I saw them. Shapes emerging from the darkness beyond the door. Not one. Not two. Hundreds. Tall silhouettes moving within the void. Far larger than the Hollow King. Far larger than mountains. Their outlines shifted constantly.
Impossible géométrie.
Impossible forms. Things the human I couldn't properly understand. Whenever I tried focusing on one, my vision blurred. My head pounded. My stomach twisted. The old man forced me to look away. Don't watch them. Why? His answer came immediately. Because they'll notice you. The terror in his voice told me everything I needed to know. Then the first creature crossed the threshold. At first only its hand emerged. A gigantic hand, covered in eyes. Thousands of eyes blinking independently. Each eye reflecting different memories, different faces, different lives. The hand pushed against the opening. And somehow I understood every word, every language, every voice, every memory. The thing was speaking through stolen identities, exactly like the Hollow King, except on a scale beyond imagination. The old man staggered backward. No. For the first time since meeting him, he sounded defeated. Not yet. The giant hand pushed farther through the door. The Hollow King immediately dropped to one knee. The massive entity bowed, the servant greeting its master. Then something impossible happened. The passengers began waking up. One by one. Thousands of them. Their eyes opened simultaneously. And every single one turned toward me. Not the Hollow King. Not the door. Not the old man. Me. The entire train became silent. Then Daniel Harper stood. Slowly. His expression looked different now. Human. For the first time since I'd seen him again. His voice sounded weak. Exhausted. Painful. Like someone speaking after decades of imprisonment. Then Samuel Graves stood. and another survivor. Then another. Thousands of stolen people rising together. Daniel looked at the door. Then back at me. We don't have much time. The same words the old man had spoken. What do you mean? Daniel swallowed. Then he revealed something I never expected. We are still here. I stared at him, unable to understand. What? The people it takes. He pointed toward his chest. The real us. A pause. We never completely disappear. The realization hit me instantly. The Hollow King collected identities, memories, lives, but it never fully destroyed them. Some part remained trapped inside, watching, waiting, for decades, centuries. Daniel looked toward the door again. If it opens completely. His voice trembled. Everything we've protected will be lost. The old man nodded. Then he finally revealed the truth. The truth behind the marked ones. The reason survivors existed. The reason I had been chosen. The mark isn't a curse. I blinked. What? The Hollow King believes it marks prey. A pause. But that's not what it really does. The old man pointed toward my arm. It's a key. The mark burned brighter. Pain exploded through my body. Images flooded my mind. Hundreds of memories. Thousands. Millions. Not mine. The memories of every survivor. Every victim. Every person the Hollow King had ever taken. I saw their lives, their fears, their deaths, their resistance, and suddenly I understood. The Hollow King had made a mistake centuries ago. Every person it consumed left behind a fragment, a piece of themselves, a piece stored inside the mark. The marks connected all survivors, all victims, all stolen identities. A network, a weapon, a prison, and for the first time in history, the prison door was beginning to crack. The giant entity beyond the door pushed farther into reality. The train began collapsing. Chunks of metal tore away. The darkness spread. The Hollow King rose from its kneeling position and looked directly at me. Millions of stolen faces shifted beneath its skin. Then it smiled. Not with confidence. Not with triumph. With fear. Because it finally realized something. I wasn't the final victim. I was the final lock. And if the lock broke, everything would change. The door opened another inch. Reality screamed. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the threshold, something began walking toward our world. The door opened another inch. That was all it took. 1 inch. 1 impossible inch. And reality began to come apart. Cracks spread through the darkness around the train. The air itself fractured like broken glass. I watched pieces of the world peel away into the void. The old man grabbed my arm. His expression was grim, defeated, but determined. Listen carefully. The mark on my skin burned brighter. The symbol now glowed beneath my flesh like molten metal. The Hollow King lied to itself. I stared at him. What does that mean? The old man looked toward the giant entity beyond the door. For centuries, it believed it was gathering identities for its master. A pause. It never understood what it was actually creating. The train shook violently. Metal tore apart around us. The passengers struggled to remain standing. Daniel moved closer. The victims. He pointed toward the thousands of people aboard the train. The Hollow King never consumed us completely. The realization returned. Every victim had left something behind. A fragment. A memory. Millions of fragments. Millions of stolen lives. And now all of them existed together. Connected. The old man nodded. The Hollow King had spent centuries collecting identities. Stealing lives. Capturing memories. Without realizing it, it had been building an army. An army of the people it had taken. An army trapped inside itself. And now the door was weakening enough for them to fight back. The giant hand beyond the door pushed farther into reality. The station trembled. The darkness screamed. Then every passenger aboard the train began speaking simultaneously. Thousands of voices. Thousands of identities. Not in fear. Not in panic. In defiance. The sound rolled through the void like thunder. The Hollow King staggered. For the first time in centuries, it was losing control. Faces began emerging from its body. Hundreds. Then thousands. Then tens of thousands. The stolen people were breaking free. Samuel Graves stepped forward. Daniel stepped forward. The little girl in the yellow dress stepped forward. And behind them came everyone else. Generations of victims. Generations of stolen lives. The Hollow King screamed. A terrible sound. Not anger. Not pain. Fear. Because it finally understood the truth. It had never been the jailer. It had become the prison. The old man turned toward me. Ryan. I knew what he was about to say before he said it. The mark. I looked down. The symbol was blazing now. What do I do? The old man smiled sadly. You open the lock. The moment he spoke those words, the memories inside the mark erupted. Millions of lives flooded through me. Every victim. Every memory. Every stolen identity. I felt them all. Their fears. Their hopes. Their final moments. Then I understood what the mark truly was. It wasn't a key meant to open the door. It was a key meant to close it. The Hollow King had accidentally created the one thing capable of stopping its master. The survivors. The marked ones. The lock. I raised my arm. The symbol exploded with light. A wave of energy surged through the train. Through the station. Through the Hollow King itself. The millions of trapped identities responded instantly. The stolen faces began pulling away from the creature. One by one. Then thousands at a time. The Hollow King's body started collapsing. The massive entity beyond the door roared. For the first time, the thing beyond the threshold sounded afraid. The door began closing. Slowly. Painfully. The giant hand tried to pull itself through. Too late. The passengers pushed forward. Millions of stolen memories. Millions of stolen lives. Forcing the door shut. The opening narrowed. The darkness beyond screamed. The giant hand vanished. The eyes disappeared. The impossible shapes retreated. And with one final deafening impact, the door slammed closed. Silence. Complete silence. The Hollow King stood motionless, its body crumbling apart. Faces emerged from its surface, smiling, crying, laughing, free. Daniel looked at me. For the first time, he looked peaceful. Thank you.
Samuel Graves Navid.
The little girl smiled. Then one by one, they began fading away. Not dying. Leaving. Finally free after decades. After centuries. The Hollow King collapsed. Its enormous body dissolved into dust. And then it was gone. The train disappeared. The station disappeared. The darkness disappeared. Everything vanished. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor of the abandoned subway station beneath Chicago. Emergency lights flickered overhead. Sarah knelt beside me. Ryan. Her voice sounded distant. You've been unconscious for almost 12 hours. I slowly sat up. The tunnels were empty. No train.
No passengers.
No Hollow King. Nothing. Only silence. Months later, life returned to normal. At least on the surface. The disappearances stopped. The phone calls stopped. The voices stopped. The mark on my arm faded. Eventually, it disappeared completely. Most people never learned what happened. The foundation was dissolved. The files were sealed. The tunnels were closed. History moved on. But sometimes, late at night, I still remember the door, and the final thing I saw before it closed. Because for one brief second, something beyond the threshold looked directly at me. Not the Hollow King. Not its master. Something even farther away. Something watching from the darkness behind everything else. And just before the door closed,